But one of the things that in a case like this causes me concern is when there's a intersection of free speech and a lawyer's duty to advocate. It's happened to me. Your former office, the Southern District of New York, tried to put a gag order on me back in 2014 when I represented City Councilman Dan Halloran. The U.S. Supreme Court said that a criminal defense attorney, and I would imagine all defense attorneys, have not only a duty to defend their clients in court, but in the court of public opinion.
Vinoo Varghese.
How are you, Mr. Mayor? Yes.
I got it right because Vinoo is a very, very distinguished and a very fine lawyer. He is now presently what we would describe as a white-collar criminal lawyer. That's kind of a new designation of the last 30 or 40 years. I mean,
I think largely due to you.
Yeah. Largely due to me and some of my bosses like Bob Morvillo and because when I got out of law school, there was no such thing. But I got out of law school around the time of Abraham Lincoln. So, Vinoo was a former prosecutor, and as very often happens, he's now a white-collar criminal lawyer. So tell us your background just a little bit. You know, let people know how this happens to somebody.
Well, I got out of law school. I was very fortunate to know D.A. Hines in Brooklyn, and he hired me out of law school. And I worked for him. God rest his soul.
God rest his soul, and a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I worked.
Even though he was a Democrat and I was a Republican, in those days you could be friends.
Yeah.
And we worked together on cases.
Right. I did 6 years there.
When were you there?
2000 and 2006.
Too bad. If you were there in the 80s, you might have come work for me.
Right.
Because he and I would do what we call cross-designation.
Right.
And in fact, some of his people were my goodness, some of them were really some of my best people. One went on to be President Bush's national security advisor.
Wow.
I mean, he had some good people. I did that with him, and I did it with the Bronx, with Johnson and with Mario.
Right.
He had a lot of good people there.
It was a good experience. It was a great experience.
So you have expressed yourself on the Chauvin case, which of course, is a very, very difficult, very emotional case. But I think one of the things that's happened to us, we're going to have to learn how to analyze cases, even if they are highly emotional.
Right.
Because that's what we're supposed to do as a justice system. So tell me what you think of it, given the very sensational coverage it got. I think it's very hard for people to understand it.
Sure. Last year, when the case came out, when he was initially charged, or when his charges were increased, I wrote an op-ed that was published online on law.com and printed in the New York Law Journal. And I argued that he had been overcharged and that this was an abuse of prosecutorial discretion by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. As the year went on and the case got closer to trial, when the trial began, Court TV and HLN both asked me to cover much of the trial. So I saw the trial basically from start to finish, including jury selection. And there were a lot of things that made me scratch my head because it was, in my view, he did not get a fair trial. And I understand that the public wanted blood, right? Keith Ellison and everybody wanted blood. But he didn't get a fair trial.
And there also was lingering over the trial this fear that if he wasn't sufficiently punished, maybe even if he wasn't sort of hung on the top count.
Correct.
We're going to have, like, violence all over America.
Correct. And
I don't know how true it is. I don't know if it would have happened, but you can't say the fear wasn't there.
I can tell you that many people expressed that to me and said to me, God, I hope he was, he's convicted. The problem was you had a lot of things going on that just made it worse. His lawyer was terribly deficient and not the right person for this kind of case.
Isn't that terrible to see?
Yeah, I mean, I would be screaming at the lawyer.
It's probably like a doctor somehow with his hands tied behind his back watching another doctor do a bad operation.
It was terrible. And then the judge didn't sequester these jurors, particularly when that kid was shot and killed. Right.
Didn't understand that. I didn't understand how that case. I tried a whole bunch of Koch's, what do I call them, political friends who were crooks. Right. And the one big case was Stanley Friedman. It got so much publicity in New York. I mean, we moved it all the way up to Hartford, outside the New York media market. We tried it in New Haven, but the people came from Hartford.
Right.
So I'm familiar. I mean, I agreed to change as a venue, more than not just in that case. And I always felt, a prosecutor, you'll understand this, you don't only want to convict, you want to protect the conviction.
Absolutely.
I mean, what's the use of going to trial again? And when you go to trial again, I mean, who knows what can happen? You can lose witnesses. So, I mean, it's terrible. So what do you think of the case against me? Have you ever heard of this? I'm being suspended because I'm a danger. And but they don't say what like I'm going to cause a riot or something. Well, I've been saying these things for months, and there hasn't been any riot.
Yeah.
And the one they point to, January 6th, is over. And these statements were made after that. And I question if that was a riot. Or certainly an insurrection. It's the only insurrection without a gun shot being fired.
Right. Well, I'll speak from a legal perspective, and obviously you have fantastic lawyers who are working for you. I know.
I got great lawyers.
But one of the things that in a case like this causes me concern is when there's a intersection of free speech and a lawyer's duty to advocate. So this situation has come up before. It's happened to me. Your former office, the Southern District of New York, tried to put a gag order on me back in 2014 when I represented City Councilman Dan Halloran because they didn't like the comments that I was making. So they tried to put a gag order on me, pursuant to a local rule saying I'm not supposed to make comments. I responded with a U.S. Supreme Court case, a case that went to U.S. Supreme Court called Gentili versus Nevada. There, the Nevada State Bar sought to muzzle a criminal defense attorney. The U.S. Supreme Court went, and he had his license suspended. He challenged it, went to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court said that a criminal defense attorney, and I would imagine all defense attorneys, have not only a duty to defend their clients in court, but in the court of public opinion. So I'm a regular television legal commentator. Whether we agreed with your views or not and what you did, but one of the things I always said was you had a right to defend your client.
Yeah, and they have a right to put somebody on and say, I'm wrong, I'm incorrect, I'm lying, I'm misrepresenting. I mean, that's part of free speech.
Absolutely.
You say something and I contradict it.
It concerns me.
And then people can make up their own minds.
In this kind of situation.
What they're doing here is this is complete censorship. They don't want the public to find out about what happened in that election. They do not, because they want to pass H.R. 1, which would destroy free elections in America and make it a one-party country. This has been a concerted effort at censorship. And they're doing this to me right now because Arizona's about to end, Georgia's about to begin, and they know they got a lot of problems coming up, and they want Big Mouth shut. Okay, Vinny. Right. We're going to have you back it's very, very, very soon. I really enjoy your commentary.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.